The broadcast is now starting. All attendees are in listen-only mode.
Hello, everybody. This is Jeff Mesnick. I want to thank you all for attending. We're going to probably wait one more minute or two more minutes as people are still trickling in. So again, we're excited to share with you, and I'm excited to have Luanne Tierney here with us. Luanne has come to us from years in the channel marketing world. Luanne, do you want to share your background a little bit?
Fun years. Hi, this is Luanne. For those of you who don't know me, I've spent the last 25 years running different channel marketing organizations from Juniper and Cisco and 3Com and HP and you name it. So I've seen it all, and I'm pretty excited to share some of the latest trends that we're seeing in the industry right now.
So we're all pretty excited about this, and I hope that it'll be a fun and entertaining event for everybody. And we're going to get started in just a minute. I'm just checking in to see how many more people we have attending. And all right, so I think we're good to go, Luanne. So I'm going to
Okay.
Let's start it up. So today we're going to discuss how to use LinkedIn and other social tools to increase sales. This is a conversation that Luanne has had in multiple places, and she has done a fabulous job of explaining this to lots of different companies and to her own channel as well. And we're really excited to have her with us to share this insight with everybody who's on the webinar. And for those of you, we are recording the webinar, so we'll send you a copy of the recording when we're done. So to start us off, we're going to ask the basic question. Yeah, go for it, Luanne. Let's go.
Okay, so here's the hottest buzzword today. Have you guys noticed this? It's social selling. If you Google, if you hashtag, social selling is just going like gangbusters. And really what social selling is, it's an opportunity to use social media to generate and get sales, but it's based on listening and sharing content. So it's creating a whole new dynamic both for sales reps and for marketers.
Excellent. And I also do want to say that we have a bunch of questions that we're asking Luanne and moving forward through here. But if you have questions, please feel free to type them right in. Lorian from our team here will be actively looking at the questions, and she'll, if she feels it's necessary, will interrupt us. If not, we'll wait to the end. All right, so the first question I have is, why is this so important? So Luanne, maybe I'll let you address that. I kind of like to start off by saying to people, the reason I think it's so important is, what if you could have all your sales prospects in one single room with you? And that's what's amazing about social selling, is that they're all there, right?
Right, it's giving you content for prospects basically at your fingertips. In fact, LinkedIn, and we'll talk about it in just a minute, just came out with a new app even today. So new things are popping up daily in terms of social selling. But what we're finding, they're really tracking all the results about what's happening with social selling. And they're seeing a lot of these digital salespeople who use social media are outselling their peers. Social media produces 2 times the leads of trade shows, telemarketing. And then the most surprising fact is 52% of marketers sourced a lead from Facebook in 2013. So just when you think Facebook is kind of just a social, just for your personal life, it's not true. It really does have business value.
Yeah, I
now,
kind of...
Go ahead, Jeff. Go ahead.
No, sorry about that. So I kind of look at Facebook and I say, well, how could that be? So I'm going to go back to this slide for a second here. I'm going to ask that. So why do you think it is that Facebook, when it seems so based for consumers, why do you think people are getting leads from that? What can you really find out from there?
Okay, and I'm talking business to business. So what I have seen in the last few years, and I see this consistently, whether you're a technology manufacturer, a reseller, you name it. What happens is, if these companies have a Facebook page, they're posting their customer events, a CIO roundtable, a hug and chug, you name it, from their company. They post it, they share topics of conversation. What they always come back to me and say is, I always get someone from my business community that said, wow, that was interesting. Can you tell me more about what you shared at that roundtable or at that, that event? So it's really important for companies to have a presence on Facebook and to show what they're doing on Facebook, because it creates interest in the community.
That's excellent. I agree with that 100%. And I also love the idea that I know Facebook is trying to really expand their groups. And one of the things that, they're really trying to do that to kind of replicate in many ways what LinkedIn does, where so many people or businesses don't even realize when I start off that first slide and I say all your customers are in one place, they're actually sitting there waiting for you in these groups. I mean, you take a look at a LinkedIn group that has 250,000 IT executives. And this really helps.
Cloud computing, yeah.
Yeah, like cloud computing, the SaaS. I mean, even if you take a look at the ERP group, which is a little bit more focused than cloud computing because that's a buzzword now, so everyone's part of it. But ERP has 63,839 members. So I know some of you out there are selling ERP solutions. Well, guess what? Your customers are engaged. They're listening to conversations here. They may not be responding to everything, but if you post some interesting and relevant content or respond to the questions that are out there, you're starting to engage with these people in a whole new way. And you're starting to give your salespeople the tools that they need to research the different people who are responding or engaged or in the community group.
And Jeff, let me just add one thing about groups. What I've heard from and I've experimented myself with groups, you'll join a group, you'll engage, you'll look, and sometimes you'll go, ooh, this group isn't the most impactful for me. You can, dismember yourself from a group. Participate in groups that are very valuable and that align to what you're interested in or what you're selling. So just don't join a bunch of groups and then it's really hard to manage. So I would go back to the topic around groups and say, pick a few groups that you're really passionate about and then post and follow and stuff. So lessons learned off groups.
When you find those groups, I mean, the great thing is you could also find out who else is in these groups. So as a salesperson, you could actually target individuals. I mean, I take a look at this ERP group and I find that, you have people who are focused on communications, marketing communications for IT, for ERP, or whatever it might be, but all these people are there. They're not first degree connections, but they might be second or third degree connections. And you get to learn about them and more than you've ever known before. So here's a question that we always get, but isn't LinkedIn mostly for job hunting? So I'll let you take this, Luanne.
Okay, and LinkedIn, I have to say, LinkedIn is becoming the king of social selling. I found some other tools and resources, but LinkedIn is making a huge push from going from job hunting to social selling. What they're seeing is more sales reps who use LinkedIn social selling efforts get more customer renewals, 31% greater team attainment, more reps reaching their targets, and this is from the Aberdeen group. So this isn't me saying, oh, well, more people are using LinkedIn for selling. What they're seeing is real results associated with using the tools that LinkedIn, or basically the data that LinkedIn has available to you. You just have to go in and tap into it.
So, okay, we started to talk a little bit about what the social selling is, but that's great. I think we've all heard, oh, you got to do social selling, you got to do this, but very few people really give the details on how to begin. So we're going to ask Luanne to kind of share with us a little bit more tactical details on what it is that we need to do in order to be successful. So I'll let Luanne, I think you love this quote, and I know you love this guy.
Well, I love Gary. Yeah, I know you do too. We both saw him present at the same time. So Gary V, he's written some fantastic books, but I love this quote. It's important to build a personal brand because it's the only thing you're going to have. Your reputation online matters, which is the new business world is pretty much the game. So you can't hide anything, or more importantly, you've got to be out there at some level. And I think what I've seen, the biggest thing, I recently presented in front of about 1,000 sales reps, and I said, you no longer can wait and just use like Facebook and just say, okay, I'm going to do it the, face-to-face cold calling type. Those things are never going to go away, but if you can use the access to data and have an online personal brand, it will help you and you'll see it snowball. So Jeff, why don't you go to the next slide?
Yep. So you want to take this too?
Okay, yeah, so this goes to the online brand thing. The first step you have to have is a presence. You've got to Google yourself, and I'm sure all of you've done that. Look at your profile, make sure people know who you are and what you do. And the thing that I'm always surprised at is people always have their name and their title. Well, your title is not who you are and what you stand for. So I think it's important to not just have your title, but maybe you're a selling expert or a marketing expert in the area of X. Be a little more interesting, and so it aligns with your personal brand. But don't just have a title, and make sure you have a photo in your LinkedIn profile.
Yeah, I think it's important to bring that out a little bit. When people are going to read something that you might have written or are looking at your company and they want to know who I should reach out to or connect to, one of the first places they're going to go is to LinkedIn. And if they look at LinkedIn and it's messy, the content is not well written, it might be something that's not really there. So you might really want to focus in and really think about what it is that you're trying to present. So, Luanne, I'll let you take the next one.
Yeah, so first step, you got to have a brand, just like Gary Vee, just like Jeff just said. You've got to decide that you have a presence. Then once you have a presence, who I am, what do I stand for, what are the SEO tags and stuff, then it's got to be about your audience, not so much about you. So if you want to pick, remember how we were talking about pick some groups and get involved? Well, the only way you know how to get involved is do a little research around your audience. Where do they hang out? Go to the IT forums. See what customers are saying. What are your customers or your audience interests? What are they reading? To me, that's a great way. It can't just be about you, but it's about your audience. And once you ask yourself those questions and do a little research, you'll understand which groups to join and the comments to make.
And then you want to go to the next step here? Yeah. This is also your step?
So then the third step, this is 3 easy steps, right? So kind of goes back to first doing the research, then you need to listen. And look at what's being said. I mean, Jeff, you showed the ERP group. What are customers' hot topics? Security, the heartbleed, when that was happening, that was an easy one for everyone to go, ooh, here's how to comment, right? What are the latest trends? What's the current IT news? Basically, that's what will be your guide, and it's going to change every week. So you're going to have to allot a few minutes. Maybe it's every Sunday night or every Monday morning, 20 minutes to do a little bit of research to say, hey, what's happening in the market? And then based on that, I will share the following, right? So it can't be, this is what's top of mind for me. What I have found, if I time my my comments around what's kind of trending in the groups that I'm in, I get a great response around that.
So before we go to the next slide, I just want to kind of make sure we're all very clear. These 3 great steps, because what they do is they help really define you. So in some ways, step 3 is almost as more important than anything else, because it can help define step 1 and step 2. Mm-hmm. Where by listening, or more step 1 in many ways, by listening to what people are saying, to what people are looking for, what people are talking about, can help define your profile. And updating your profile is good. It's not a bad thing. So LinkedIn actually gives you some best practices. And if you read what they say it's one of the things to do is to keep your profile updated. So you just did a webinar, or you just listened to a webinar that made you a better marketer or a better salesperson, or whatever it might be. You could say, I just went through this training. So listening to what people are looking for and then updating your profile to match that is not a bad thing. It's actually a good practice. And then also listening then builds your next step, which is, I think people who've heard our webinars before have heard me say, building your editorial calendar, understanding the top 10 questions that people are asking before they make a business decision. And that's what brings us to the step 4, which I'll let Luanne take, if that's okay.
Sure. And you know, one thing, Jeff, and I think it's important for everyone to think about, you've got to structure your calendar differently now if you are going to embrace social selling. You've got to, just like get an exercise program where you got to schedule it and go, okay, today I got to go to the gym, you know, Wednesday I got to go to the gym, and Friday I got to, you know, you've got to do the same thing on your calendar. You've got to schedule time to build out your profile, to listen, do a little research, and then, you know, maybe it's every Friday you start sharing relevant content to start conversation. I gave you 3 examples here. You know, post an intriguing question. People love questions. Want to know the top security mistakes every company makes. And then you can, I'm sure your marketing teams would have all kinds of cool stuff you can have a link to. The other thing I have seen, both whether it's LinkedIn or Twitter, is follow up within a week with a question or a conversation starter saying, hey, did anyone download that? What was the most interesting thing you found? Because somebody always responds, and you'd be surprised how it gets engagement going. But what I think the big aha from this 1, 2, 3, 4 is you've got to set aside the time to do these 4 things. You cannot get going with social selling if you don't make it a part of your social selling, you know, activities on a daily basis.
So a lot of you are in marketing who are on this call, and you might be thinking to yourself, well, okay, we're talking a lot to the salespeople, but really this is a very marketing driven program in many ways, because let's face it, salespeople should not be trusted to write a lot of their own stuff. We need to give them some direction. We need to give them the help. And as marketers, that's really what we need to do. So what does, you know, when you think about what's the steps that a marketer needs to take? So Luanne, do you have some thoughts, and then we can go into this? Or
Well, I think you just have to target the groups that it goes back to, you can find groups that have lots of people, but it has to be relevant to what you're either marketing or selling. Look at, big data is kind of cool and very cool and hot right now, but what's the right messaging that you could tie to, or is this a group you shouldn't be involved in? It's kind of, I think it goes back to not just groups in terms of quantity, but how it ties to what you're trying to accomplish.
Yeah, and I agree. I think the reason I showed this slide with all these different big data, business intelligence groups is all these groups are interesting, but they're not all of them are right. And as a marketer, one of the things we really want to do is help direct our salespeople, because I know from my experience in some of the sales that I've done, I started off with LinkedIn. I had all of a sudden 40 groups, and I was trying to maintain and manage 40 different groups. And I was like, oh my God, I can't do that.
It's too hard. Yeah, it
is. So I've slimmed it down. I've spent the effort. And, with my marketing team here, we've really tried to narrow focus into specific groups that were defined as most relevant. And that's where the marketing team really helps out, because it can get really overwhelming for a salesperson who's already ADD, right?
Well, I think we're all ADD. No longer is it just the sales guy.
So really, for a marketer, the next step is to really help define the content, right? So we need to define the idea that we need to submit articles to start off with for our sales team to have a conversation about. So if we can submit a piece of content, maybe it's on one of our salesperson's long posts, or we submit an article or a question, as you said, Luanne, to a group, and then we let our salespeople actually pick off the responses. So I don't know if you have something to add to that, but that's kind of like my whole theory is like, let the salespeople just kind of listen to what's going on and say, oh, that person's a good prospect. That person's a good prospect. I'm just going to grab them.
Yes, yes. And I have to, I think the hardest part is to find, what everyone always struggles with is they know, and then it's like, well, what do I share? How do I get, the content is the hardest thing that everyone struggles with. So one, if you spend a little time listening to what's being said, you'll be able to serve up relevant content. And two, I don't know if you're doing a slide on this, but one thing about ContentMX, this platform that is better than Hootsuite, better than all these other vehicles, is you can say, I want to serve up content around big data, and your platform will do that, and the latest articles that are happening in the industry. I really like that, and I think that's a big differentiator because it's very time consuming I know like what I want to talk about, but it takes time to find content to give to your audience, and I think your tool really helps with that.
And I think people spend a lot of time trying to overthink content. It's kind of like they used to tell authors who are struggling to be writers. They said, start off always writing with what you know, as opposed to trying to write your first novel about, being the next Carl Sagan. If you haven't spent the years doing research like he did, it's very difficult to write a book like that. But if you write about what you know, or try to keep it simple and focused, so being able to curate content and submit it into these networks with commentary is a great way to get started. And especially with LinkedIn's new long form posts. So I'm not sure if people are aware of what the long form post is, but
why don't you tell us, Jeff?
Okay, so the long form post is really LinkedIn's latest edition, where they basically are saying, you know what, instead of just giving us short little pieces, we want to know more about you. We're going to attach the long form post to your profile. So when people look at you, they're going to know that not only are you into, for us, content marketing, or you're into big data, but you're into big data and this is what you think about it. This is how you've seen it deployed. Short, simple messages that are longer than your standard messages, have links to outside content. Those are things that have a lot of value. And LinkedIn really has... Go ahead.
Is it how they're trying to kind of differentiate themselves from Twitter, right?
Yep, that's exactly right. That's a key thing. And they're working closely with Google because Google is starting to rank authorship. And LinkedIn is tracking how many shares you have from it, how many impressions you have. So it's really starting to generate engagement. And it's a great way, and they keep talking about this, and you'll hear me say this later. They actually use Twitter, tweet this out to bring engagement back to your long form post. That's your primary form of engagement. And as a salesperson, having that long form post talking about the stuff that you're selling in a more business solutions manner is a great way to build that engagement and connection with the prospects. And I would use your marketing department to make sure that those pieces of content are actually pretty good.
Hey, Jeff, can we mention something about Google during this section?
Yes, absolutely. Let's go.
Because one of the things, as I've been doing a lot of experimenting and seeing, okay, LinkedIn, they're going after it with content. Content is king, and Twitter and stuff. But what I've seen is Google and Google Plus, you have to be on it for SEO words and to be found. But I don't see them taking a lead. Like, I think LinkedIn and Twitter is doing a much better job about engagement and using that. So if you only have 10 minutes of time I would put your time into LinkedIn and Twitter versus doing posts on Google Plus, to be honest. That's what I've found. But
Yeah,
I don't know if you, do you agree with that?
yeah. So I mean, here's what really is, here's one of the things with Google. The real thing that you got to remember, it's about being found, right? That's why people use Google, I think, as marketers. We want to be found. And LinkedIn is now, with this long post form, it announces to all your followers. So not just people you're connected to, but people who are following you, and first degree, second degree, about this great piece of content. Twitter, you're doing the hashtags and you're pointing people are doing active listening and engagement on Twitter. And we're going to talk more about that. So I think Luanne's 100% correct. You want to be found. And more important than Google Plus is actually Google likes pictures. So putting a LinkedIn post with a picture is going to drive increased SEO value and get you found much more than if you're overspending time on trying to figure out what the hell Google Plus is doing. Not that you shouldn't, but if, like you said, Luanne, if you only got 10 minutes, focus on Twitter and LinkedIn. Those are the areas that drive the most traffic to your site and get you found the quickest. Does that make sense?
I think it does, and we're trying to save the audience time. So, I mean, I've burned a lot of time on Google Plus, and I think, I use it for your SEO search words and words that you want to be associated with, but I'd focus on LinkedIn right now.
So we actually have two quick questions, which I'm going to use. One's from Ed, and he's confused about what social media content management tool we recommend. So, Luanne, for fear of being self-serving, I'll let you.
This?
Yeah.
So, what's been, because I have spent my career, at least the last 10 years, looking at all the tools, always experimenting with the newest and greatest. And when Jeff started showing me his platform, ContentMX, I was like, yeah, this is nice. And then I started playing with it, and I thought, wow, this is great, because you know what it does differently, say, than Hootsuite and some of the others, is what I like is it saves me time. Like, I like to tweet and post content around marketing. And so what I can go into his tool and say, what are the latest marketing topics or whatever, and it serves up new stuff to me every day, so I don't have to spend time hunting for information. I think that's a huge differentiator, because it's easy. I mean, it is like, my mother could do it. You Google the word, it comes up in the tool. You say, I want to post it at 7 o'clock at night. I mean, you kind of just, you can manage it within 5 minutes, and I really like that. I think your tool is built for people that don't want to spend time. It serves up content, and it's easy. And the nice thing is, then you can also take your tool, and it can be a newsletter too. So I don't want to spend too much time, but I just want to say how easy it is, and I think it's the beauty of your tool is around helping find relevant content that you want to share with your audience. It really does stand out.
Well, I appreciate that, and that's kind of what we built it on. I'm also going to just reiterate. There was a question that came from Jeff from Boston Scientific about Google Plus. Jeff, your question was, are you missing out on some of the SEO opportunities? And the answer is potentially. But I think the way Luanne and I are looking at it is the whole get found aspect of where it's not just about SEO getting found, but about getting found on LinkedIn and Twitter is also important. So what you should be doing is combining. You should be posting on Google Plus and making sure everything just gets posted easily up there, just the same thing that you're doing everywhere else. But spending time to really engage on Google Plus is probably not as relevant. Google's looking at it as saying, okay, are you posting here? Do you have your short messages, your Twitter-like posts? Yes. That's really all you need to start doing if you don't have a lot of time right now. And then focus on the LinkedIn and Twitter, because Google's actually searching all those pieces to make it relevant. So I think that's kind of
We're not saying don't do Google Plus. I make sure I have my name and title and things that are all aligned with what I stand for, and so you can find it on SEO search words. But the LinkedIn right now to me seems like a real differentiator.
Yep, I agree. So I've kind of been saying stuff like this, and I'm going to ask the question. And not that I've ever been to a rave, because I'm a little bit too old for that, at least as far as anyone knows. But isn't it like a rave where it's kind of there one day and gone the next? How do we make sure that if we're part of a group, that group stays active? So I'm not sure, Luanne, if you have any tips on that, or we can jump to the slide, how you want to go.
I think you can cover it. I mean, you've got it. I'll let you.
Okay, so
run with this one.
yeah, I think when Luanne and I have talked about this, one of the things that we really focus in on is how do we sustain engagement? And we found these reports which basically show that using email as an integrated platform into all this is really important, because email actually drives more engagement and sharing than any other platform out there. So when you are part of a group, or if you created your own group, and I highly recommend you do this if you have the time, but if you create your own group or a part of a group, sharing the comments and the conversation on email will sustain that group. So you could single-handedly help to foster that group's life by continuously, weekly or monthly, whatever you do, sharing the relevant conversations in an email newsletter and sending that out. And the reason you want to do that is because, and some of you may have seen me share this slide before, but I love it because it talks about the sharing of content, which is what drives people to get found more than anything else. So IT decision makers actively share content. And when you send that content as an email newsletter, they'll engage with it and they'll share it. So let's go to this.
And I like it. It's IDG. I mean, just, everyone thinks email is going to go away, but it's not. Right. And,
right.
But you check emails from trusted, I mean, you think of yourself, you only open up stuff that's somebody that might help or interesting information and stuff like that. So that's how I look at why these numbers are still staying pretty high.
Yeah, I agree. So Luanne, this is kind of your area here, LinkedIn tips. So let's talk about that a little bit. So how do you help these guys start to really, some good tips to get going?
Okay, this is fun. So use headlines. Your title is not always the best headline. I'm always surprised how people just use their headline. In fact, there's a great book by the CEO, Reid Hoffman, who writes about you're the CEO of your own company. So you need to be thinking more and more about your title, who you are, transcends whatever company you're at, right? So write a summary showing the value you bring, like in the first person. I think industry stats, everyone loves that to gain credibility. Show your expertise. And then this is one, list the skills your customers will want to hear. And then you can also use your LinkedIn. It has a professional portfolio part. I don't know if you guys have noticed that. As you can do video, you can do links, you can do PDFs, you could share presentations. So it's about having your LinkedIn profile standing out, not just account manager at X company. That doesn't describe you and who you are very well.
Okay. So if I'm...
And I got to say, the
okay.
photo, I'm still surprised at how many people don't have a photo in their LinkedIn.
Yes, I agree with that.
You get a 77% people will trust you more if you have a photo in your LinkedIn. Isn't that fascinating? We're living in a visual world.
That's right. It's hilarious, actually. And, it's funny because I put an article up which had a picture from The Office with Michael Scott saying, his quote, "Business is personal. Business is the most personal thing you can do." So it's kind of a funny thing when you think about Michael Scott saying that. You remember from The Office, it was a big joke because it's just business, it's not personal. But it has actually become that way, where people make personal connections. They want to know who they're selling or talking to or buying from. They want to know more about you. They want to know that you have value. So your picture, your profile, the information you provide is so important. It's so personal.
And the only other thing I would say is I think on a quarterly basis, you should be updating your LinkedIn. It's not like you update it once a year. You should be, because some of the things, your accomplishments, things that you're interested in, that changes. So you need to take the time and look at it and make sure it's an accurate reflection of who you are.
That is true. And so let's talk about, for a moment, the type of investments folks should make in this, because it's really getting a little confusing because LinkedIn is continuously creating these new pieces here.
Yeah, and this is, and I have to say, and I know you did what mine, LinkedIn Premium. When I bought LinkedIn Premium, I think it was like $89 for the year. Right now it's up to $23.99 a month. But I really like the LinkedIn Premium because you can see who's looking at you. You can get key information. If you click on the advanced button on LinkedIn, you can have insights to a lot of people in your network, as well as second and third degree in your network. And you can reach out to anyone in LinkedIn. So I have found it's a great investment. I think the hardest thing right now is to find out, because their pricing has changed a little bit. Have you noticed that, Jeff?
Yeah.
That it's changed.
Yeah.
It's been hard to, I think they're just going like gangbusters. So they're like, oh, should we package it like this much, or how much should we package it? So, but I think it's a great investment. And some companies are buying packages for their companies and getting company discounts and stuff. So you may want to ask if there's someone in your company that has bought a corporate package for LinkedIn. Otherwise, my whole thing is it's worth, the $23.99 a month. That's like 4 lattes practically. So it's a good investment in your network. And you know what? The other thing I would say, it's a great way now to be able to blog and stuff, because now you can, like we were saying earlier, share content without setting up a whole new, your own personalized blogging site. So I think it's a pretty reasonable thing to invest in, and I couldn't live without it. That's my thing.
So I do want to, kind of running a little bit longer than we thought, but that's okay, because I think there's some really great information that we're getting out here. But I wanted to kind of breeze through a little bit without being too breezy about the power of Twitter, because I think people tend to overlook it from a B2B standpoint. And it's actually a very cool platform where you actually can see that 42% of the people are on there looking to learn more about products. And we mentioned this gentleman, Gary V, earlier in the presentation. And Luanne, do you remember what he said about how much business he's been able to do on Twitter?
Oh, it's amazing. And his whole message is market in the year that we're in. And Twitter is a fantastic tool. You can find people. You can do the hashtag. I see what you've got here, Jeff. You did a search on banks and big data, and look who you can search, follow these guys, see what they're talking about. So it's not just LinkedIn. Twitter's a great way to have business conversations.
Yeah, not only that, what Gary always says is, that can we just find people? So let's take a look and say, okay, who's talking about banks and big data? So director of worldwide banking at Microsoft is, one person, a client executive is another, so you have these people, but you could even find out great information, like if you're scouting out to see who Luanne is.
Right. So it's a great research tool, right? You can go, I'm going to find out what they talk about, what are their interests, that type of thing. I think that's why you're using Twitter. So Twitter isn't just for broadcasting messages, but you can get real information about people that you want to potentially follow up and engage with.
Yeah, for me, I was looking at a business person just before we started, and I saw that, he's a big fishing buff because his photo was him, and he basically caught a huge fish. So I know that when I speak with him, we might share a mutual interest. So that will help from a sales perspective to really make that connection. So it's a
well,
great.
And one thing to notice is I cross-reference LinkedIn in my profile. So just something to think about.
That's right. You do it all. So that's actually a great segue, because when we talk about, and I think, Luanne and I both talk about this a lot, is that you need to think about your strategies to be integrated. So when you are writing and you're a marketer and you're submitting content, too often, and you'll see in my next slide, people work in silos. People think about Twitter and how do I engage with Twitter without considering how do I engage in LinkedIn at the same time? Or even further, how does the newsletter fit? So instead, people tend to work in these kind of silos where it's, I'm only doing LinkedIn now, I'm only doing Twitter now, I'm working on my website, or I'm working on Facebook, or I'm working on Google+, or I'm working on my email newsletter. But we're saying break down the walls. Luanne did it with her profile. She mixed and matched the LinkedIn with the Twitter. But even your articles, you write something for your website, then create a long form post on LinkedIn that references the article on your website, and then build it all together in your email newsletter, Facebook, and Twitter. So that's one of the things I'm seeing, is that too often I walk into companies and they go, well, the email person's over here and the social person's over here and my web person's way over there. And they're not talking because they're all worried about their jobs. But only if they were together, they would do so much better. Any thoughts on that, Luanne?
Yeah, no, I'm sorry. I was just being, so to me, everything references each other. And what you have to do is, it goes back to kind of stepping back. What's your brand? What's your content? Who's your audiences? And you may have to take 10 or 15 minutes and go, okay, what is my strategy? How do I want to be represented? And then how am I going to tire these different vehicles? What am I going to spend my time on? So it's almost like putting a mini plan in place for yourself, for content engagement, your profile, and then how does it all fit into this puzzle? Because now, as you guys know, everything cross-references everything else.
Sounds great, but isn't this all time consuming? We've already spent a good deal of time on it, so obviously people might think that it's time consuming. But I think, Luanne, you kind of come up with some really great steps here to really help tell people that it's actually not really that time consuming if you really focus and have a set plan. Why don't you kind of maybe share that plan here?
Yeah, there's four things the way I look at it. So one, quarterly, we talked about this already. Think about your LinkedIn summary, your role, some new talking points, any new achievements. On a quarterly basis, you got to go, whoa, I got to look at my profile, and I got to make sure it represents who I am, all my great achievements. On a monthly basis, write an article highlighting your perspectives on one of the challenges of the markets that you serve. And what I keep saying is, you don't have to write an article. You can find an article, post it, and say, I agree with this one point, but I think this could be X. So that way you don't have to spend so much time writing the article. Then weekly, I would say you've got to say, pick 3 LinkedIn groups to add comments and reach out to qualifying individuals. And what Jeff and I were saying is don't go for too many LinkedIn groups. And then daily, this goes back to, if you can, and you could use the Butterfly Publisher. You can find a quick article, say, hey, sharing this to my community, cool tip, whatever, and it's easy. I mean, literally, it could take you less than 5 minutes to do that.
Yeah, and we, out there are solutions to help you really do this. And we're going to talk about some others, but the solutions that you should be looking at are things that will help you find the relevant content and then engage with the different networks. So your ability to easily do what Luanne is saying, where you can find content, you can even have third-party folks write or ghostwrite that content for you. But remember to keep it under your brand, your name, because authorship is important for SEO. But at the same time, getting the content, keeping it fresh, commenting on things that you find out there, whether it's through Google searches, Twitter searches, or whatever it might be. Those are great ways to do the things that you need to do. And every week you just do a quick search, learn, and engage, where you're able to search for the content, learn about what people are saying about the content, and then engage with those people. So, Luanne, how about this? You probably deal with this a lot because as head of channel marketing and of all these big companies and in marketing, you probably get salespeople saying, "Oh, I don't want to do this." So, how would you convince the salespeople?
Well, I spend my life having to convince them. One, it's about showing them the numbers, and what I keep telling them, and I share best practices. The companies that I see are growing the fastest are engaging through social selling techniques and tactics. There are companies out there, whether it's Hearsay Social, Alfresco, your company that has great newsletters and content. I mean, companies that are grabbing some of these great tools, utilizing them, putting them in place for their sales reps, they are growing at a much faster rate. But you have to take the time to invest in some of these tools. But once you do, it proves. So with sales reps, I show them stats from great analysts like Aberdeen and Gartner, but I also then give them anecdotes and show them what other companies are doing and how much faster they're growing.
So yeah, you started to talk on this. So I'll let you kind of finish off, which you started to talk about the different tools that are out there that people can use. So I thought I threw 3 tools up here that you can talk to a little bit. I could talk to TSL if you want, or you can start.
Okay. Well, so obviously we've already talked about your company, and yep. I think the aspect of getting content and the ease of doing newsletters and stuff, it's fantastic. SalesLoft is a new company I have discovered. I'm always looking at what are the latest and greatest things out there. So what SalesLoft does is it ties to the LinkedIn data and makes it really easy to upload content, tie to CRM. I had the benefit of seeing a demo and seeing it in use, and I could not get over how easy and what a great tool it was. So I think that's something for companies to look at. Companies like SalesLoft bringing that into their company. And then TSL Marketing, they're a great full-service marketing company that does, full channel marketing from planning, CRM integration, messaging. I worked with them recently on a project, and I have to say they were super professional, but were very thorough about pulling a complete marketing strategy in place for a company. So that's my observations of them.
Great. Well, I want to thank everybody, and I want to especially thank you, Luanne, for the time that you've spent with us. I think this was great information. I always enjoy talking with you. And everybody on the call, thank you so much. As kind of a reward, I hope, for attending the call, one of our ContentMX team will be in touch to talk about a free assessment of the LinkedIn and social selling strategy. And you can also reach out to me. And so as we come to an end, thank you very much. And Luanne, you have anything?
Thanks, everybody. I've got some good tips, and I'll see you online.
Oh, actually, do we have any questions before we go? Lorian.
Yes, before we wrap up, we just have 2 questions. One is someone asked, I just had a meeting with my manager today, but how to effectively measure and analyze it all with so many moving parts. Do you have a suggestion on a great tool to show all of the analytics or measure them all in one place?
So I think it depends on the analytics that you're looking for. We can talk about companies that are, and I'm happy to take this offline with you to understand specifically. Is this whoever S. Baldwin is? I'm not sure what your first name is, but I'm happy to take this offline. You can give me a call or send me an email. There are listening technologies out there that are very powerful. Luanne, have you spent any time with some of the listening? Is Hearsay Social like a listening tool, or?
Well, Hearsay Social serves up content it's like a platform for an entire company.
Okay.
In terms of, there's so many different, it depends on, Savos, is a bit of a ties to CRM and sees what companies are doing. Savos is a great one for seeing what people are downloading and using and things like that. So if you're a little more descriptive of what you're looking, because there's so many great resources out there, it's about what are you trying to solve.
Right. And we actually do have some of the measurements that you're looking at with email marketing, Twitter, and LinkedIn in one place. But it really depends on how deep you want to go, because there's always a level where you're kind of scratching the surface of what you need versus the depth that you want. And there might be a way to connect some of these things together. So we can definitely talk about that offline. Luanne, do you have another?
Just one more. What are some techniques that I can deploy to build an audience and drive traffic to my LinkedIn group?
To your, what was the last part?
LinkedIn.
To their LinkedIn group.
Okay.
So to me, it's all about what I would do is once you've set up your LinkedIn group, which it sounds like you posted a controversial question or something in an article that says, hey, you know, here's the article I posted. If it's too bland and stuff, people don't really engage. Yeah. But if you say, hey, this is somewhat controversial, how many of you had this situation or whatever, I find that works a lot more than being too vanilla. That's just my what I've seen. Because remember, we're all being inundated with messages and things, so what's going to catch your attention?
Yeah.
Right, is how I would look at it. Well, why do you engage in something? So I think you need to think of it that way.
Yeah, and I think you need to make the reach the broadest possible. So that's where we talk a lot about taking that statement, that question, and then integrating it across all digital mediums to drive that traffic back. So whether it's emails, you know, Twitter, Facebook, and your website, use it all. Think about where you want people to engage with you and use all those places to help connect those dots. All right. I think that's it for questions. So thank you,
All right, well,
Luanne.
thanks, everyone. I hope some of these tips were valuable, and have a great day.
All right. Thank you. Take care, everybody. We look forward to talking with you in the
See ya.
future. All right. Bye.
All right, bye.